Hi everyone, it's Erin from the Provincial Farmhouse. In today's video, we are doing an Easter egg craft using new Redesign Moulds. For today's project, I'm going to be using this foam egg and candle stand that I picked up at a dollar store. You can also probably find them on Amazon. I'm going to be adding some Gorilla Super Glue gel to the little plastic candle stand first because we are going to be gluing the egg on top of that. So I'm going to then position the egg how I want it and then press down. To prepare my surface, I'm going to be using Paint Couture's 2-in-1 primer in white, and I'm going to be applying 2 even coats to this entire project, especially the little plastic stand, because obviously plastic does not always take paint well, so this is going to ensure that my paint sticks and stays there. I then let my 2 coats of primer dry for several hours. Next, I'm going to be using Redesign's new Easter Wreaths mold, and I'm going to be dusting the design on the left first with some cornstarch, and then I'm going to be using my Dust Air Dry clay. I'm just rolling it into a sausage sort of a shape, and then I'm going to start pressing it into the details. So just really working that clay around, using my fingers to push the clay out and reposition it, and just really making sure that I've got all of those little details filled. I'm then going to flex the mold and then flip it over so that I can get that design out. I find that gravity is definitely a big help in this situation, so I'm just pulling that back to release my castings. I'm then going to add some of my Sealy's Quickset wood glue to the surface of the egg, just in the rough area where I think I'm going to be putting my clay casting, and then I'm going to carefully lift it up and then press it onto the surface where I have the glue. I also then just did a little bit of repositioning there just to make sure I was happy with where it was sitting. I'm then going to dust the 2 little bunnies there. You've got 2 bunnies facing different directions, and I'm going to start working some clay into them. The Easter release by Redesign is so gorgeous. I've already done a video using a lot of the new releases from that line. I will be sure to link it up above just to give you some ideas on how you can use the beautiful new products. So as you can see, I'm also casting the little rabbit or hare, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to cast the one that's facing the other way as well. And then once I've done that, I'm going to add some glue to the back of that and position it in the center there. I'm then going to grab the other little design, put some glue on the back of that and position it so that they're sort of facing each other. I've got a lot of glue on my surface, so I did then take a wet wipe and I just pulled back some of that excess. I'm then going to dust the bow design from that mold with some cornstarch and work my clay into that particular piece. Then I'm going to carefully pull that design out. I'm adding some glue to the back, and then I decided to position that just underneath the sweet little bunnies. I'm then going to take Redesign's Delicate Flora mold, and I'm going to be dusting just 2 of those designs with cornstarch and then working my clay into each of those. Just like before, I'm then going to flex the mold, then flip it over and let gravity help me get my designs out. I'm then going to apply some of my wood glue to the back of that Delicate Flora design, and I'm going to position it down the bottom. I did have a little break with one of those, but that's okay. As you can see, I'm very easily able to glue them back into position. I let my clay dry overnight, and the next day I came in with Abundance Mineral Paint by Paint Couture. I'm going to be adding it to the other side of the egg, the one that we haven't added any castings to. I'm probably going to go over the top of some of our castings, but ultimately they are going to be painted in a cream color, so I'm not too worried about being super neat. So as I was applying this, I did notice that I still had quite a bit of texture showing through from the foam egg, but we're going to be doing a few things to rectify this problem shortly. To help hide the foam texture and that seam line, I did come in on the second coat and apply that paint in a dabbing and stippling motion, and this definitely helped. But we are also then going to be taking Paint Couture's crust texture. I'm going to take a little bit of that out with my palette knife and put it into a plastic container. I'm then going to take some more of that Abundance Mineral Paint by Paint Couture that we've already got down on our egg, and I'm going to mix that in with the crust medium to tint it. I'm going to stir that really well, and then I'm also going to take my water mister and I'm going to water it down a little bit. So basically what I want is to then be able to come in with my brush and start dabbing it on over the top of the seam there. So it's going to hide that, but it's also going to look like some texture that you might find on eggs. So I don't want it to be really thick. I want it to be a bit random how it's been placed. And when we come in a bit later with some glaze, that texture, those little ridges are going to be caught by that, and it will look like a much more natural look. So I'm going to continue adding this mixture to the back side of the egg until I'm happy with the coverage. If I've inspired you to try any of the Paint Couture products I used today, I would really appreciate it if you would use my affiliate link. I will put that in the description and on the screen. I just get a little thank you from Paint Couture in return. After I finished applying it to the back side of that egg, I then worked my way down to our little stand, adding it there as well. Once my paint was completely dry, I then took Paint Couture's Buttercream chalk paint, and I'm going to be applying it to the other side of the egg. And again, I am going to go over the top of the castings. So there are a few areas, as you can see, where we have some of that Abundance Mineral Paint overlapping. So I'm just going to go over the top of that now, just to redefine the two separate spaces. It's going to take 2 coats to get the coverage that I want. I'm not too worried about the texture in the background here because later on we are going to be coming in with some crackle in that section. So that should hide it pretty well. Once I'm finished adding that buttercream to the egg itself, I then added a little bit of it to the designs that we added to the base. Once my paint was completely dry, I then took Paint Couture's Crackle Step 1, and I'm just going to be applying it to the background section there behind the rabbits on the buttercream side. So I'm just working that product in. I'm doing a little bit of a dabbing motion. Again, this helps with the irregular cracks. I'm then going to let this dry for about an hour and it will become tacky and sticky to the touch. Then I'm going to come in with Crackle Step 2 and I'm just going to apply it in a very similar fashion, dabbing that on to the area where we added Step 1. I then let that crackle medium dry for several hours. Next, I'm going to be using Paint Couture's Light Brown Sugar Antiquing Glaze, and I'm going to be applying it to the entire section where we added the buttercream paint. So obviously we've got the crackle, and that's really going to be highlighted by this antiquing glaze, but I'm also going to be working it into the detail of our casting. So that's really going to bring out all of the beautiful details in those designs. Once I'm finished applying it to the buttercream section, I then took a wet wipe and I'm coming in and I'm wiping back some of the excess. So obviously you can start to see that lovely crackle. You can really see the details of those molds that we added, and it's going to give this a lovely antiqued feel. I'm not worried about it being on the other section of the egg because we are going to be adding that antiquing glaze there as well. Moving on to the other side of the egg, and as I'm applying it, I'm already loving how that glaze is catching the crust medium that we added, and it's really giving the egg some lovely texture. I just think it looks lovely, almost like speckles in the way that it's highlighting the different little ridges and bumps. So I'm going to continue to add that to the entire back section of the egg, and then I'm also going to be adding it to the base section as well, and obviously going over the top of the little castings that we added down there as well. Once the glaze is completely dry, I'm going to take Paint Couture's Stardust Heavy Metal Metallic, and after stirring it well, I'm going to be applying it to the wreath casting that we added first. I'm not going to be aiming for full coverage on these sections because we are going to still want to be able to see some of that glaze, but I also wanted to bring in a little bit of shine. Once I'd finished adding that Stardust metallic to the molds, I then came in with a wet wipe and I wiped back some of that beautiful silver. I wanted it to look like it had been worn away over time, and it definitely softened the look as well and brought back a little bit more of that buttercream and that beautiful light brown sugar antiquing glaze. I also then added that Stardust metallic to the castings that we have on the base, and obviously I will be repeating the same process of then taking a wet wipe and pulling back some of that excess. Next, I'm going to take Paint Couture's Ballet Slipper Luxe Metallic Paint, and I'm going to add it to the little bow that's sitting underneath our rabbits. So I'm using a small artist brush here so that I can try and keep it just in those sections. And then once I'm finished there, I'm also going to add some of that ballet slipper just to the center of the two larger flowers on our wreath molds and to the little flowers on the base. I'm then going to take Paint Couture's Vintage Lace Luxe Metallic, and I'm going to be applying that first to our little rabbits. To soften the look and give it a bit more of an aged appearance, I did then take a wet wipe, and you'll see that I did dab off some of the excess, just like we did with the silver Luxe Metallic. I'll be repeating the same steps on the other bunny. I then took some more of that vintage lace and I'm just going to dab it on to the circular berries or flowers, whatever you want to call them, that appear in the wreath design. I'm then going to be using Redesign's Salon de la Paix, and I'm going to be casting my piece using amazing casting resin, mixing equal parts A and B for about 30 seconds. And then I'm just going to pour it into the little design down the bottom. And then once that's ready, I'm going to take it out and peel off any excess resin that I don't want from the casting there. And then I'm going to take Paint Couture's Stardust Heavy Metal Metallic again, and I'm going to add that to both sides of my casting. I want to create a little sort of crown piece to sit on the top. So I'm then going to start bending and manipulating my resin piece so that the two ends meet around the back. I'm going to add some Gorilla Super Glue to the ends and then press them together. And then I'm also going to add some of that same super glue to the base. So this is still a pretty fresh casting, so I'm able to bend and manipulate it pretty easily. As I started to position it, however, I did then decide to take a craft knife and just sort of chop off the extra little bit at the front. I just felt like it made it sit a little bit better by doing this. Once the top was stuck on well, I then took some chiffon ribbon that I had in my craft stash and I'm going to cut off a length of it. It's a little bit too thick for me though, so I'm going to make another little cut down the center, and then I'm going to tear my ribbon down the middle there to make a thinner ribbon to work with. I'm then going to be adding some more of that Gorilla Super Glue around the base so that I can hold my ribbon in place exactly where I want it. I'm going to lay my ribbon over the top of that glue, and then I'm going to flip it over and add a little bit more glue. Because of the shape of this candlestick base, it was very important to have this glue, otherwise it would have just kept slipping down to the bottom. I'm then going to tie a knot and a simple bow. After I was happy with the size and shape of the bow, I trimmed off the excess, added a little bit more glue so that the bow itself would sit a little bit higher. And then I did also take the wet wipe that I was using with the light brown sugar glaze, and I ran that over the ribbon to give it an antiqued look. I then trimmed just a little bit more off the ends of the ribbon and frayed the edges. And here's our finished Easter egg. I'm so happy with how this turned out. Those beautiful redesign molds really transformed what were some very plain little craft pieces. Let me know what you think of this in the comments. If you enjoyed today's video, I would really appreciate it if you would hit that like button, comment, and share it out. If you haven't already, I would love it if you would hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so that you don't miss out on any of our videos. You can find most of the products used today on our website, theprovincialfarmhouse.com.au. Thanks for watching.